Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Take 3 podcast. On today's show we'll be talking some shocker news, the Live by Night trailer and our director of the week. Joined with me today is my co-host Ryan McClellan.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Well then, let's get to our first topic of the day. During this week, the Live by Night trailer dropped, a new written and directed Ben Affleck movie with him starring as well. He's a bit of an ego, isn't he? What were your thoughts on this trailer?
Yeah, he does maybe have a little bit of an ego, but I wouldn't say that it's unfounded because he's a good director. That's actually an understatement. He's a great director because I loved Argo, and I think you can attribute a lot of how great that movie was to his direction and his acting as well. I think he's a really good actor now, maybe not in the past, but I think he's really worked on it, and now he's much better than he was, and he looks incredible in this trailer. I like the way it was cut. I like the way the footage looks. I think it looks very well directed. And I like the look of all the performances. Ben Affleck, Elle Fanning, I just lost it. Zoe Saldana. And yeah, I just so excited for the tone and the aesthetic. I love the era that he chose, the 1920s Boston, 1930s Boston. It looks so cool, and I'm a sucker for gangster films, so I'm 100% on board.
I actually think this trailer showed a little too much. I really do.
That's possible, yeah.
I think to be honest, this could have been 90 seconds. It could have really hooked the viewer rather than it being 150 seconds or however long it was.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes, pretty long for a teaser.
I know, I was like, this is still going in my head. Why is it still going? It looked good. Ben Affleck looks very good. All the actors you just named look also good in this movie. Are we excited?
I am. I've been excited since it was announced. And it's been a while since Argo, so ever since I saw Argo, I've really been excited for his next project. I've just been kind of waiting. So yeah, I'm excited for this, and I think that this will give me an even better indicator of what his solo Batman. Sorry to bring it back to superheroes, but that's where just about everything heads for me, is either superheroes or Star Wars. But I think it's going to be a great indicator of how he'll do with the solo Batman film. So yeah, I'm absolutely excited for this movie.
You bring up some of his previous work. What do you think your favourite of his previous work is?
Well, okay, so I haven't seen Gone Baby Gone, so I can't pass any judgment on that, but I would have to say that Argo is definitely it. And that's an interesting thing too about it, is my friend had said something about, oh yeah, it was decent. So I was like, okay, sure, I'll check it out. I went in not really expecting much of anything, kind of just a slow burn political thriller, which is what I got, but it was way better than I ever could have imagined. And I left the theater blown away. And like I said, I just could not wait for the next movie that he would direct. So I'm happy that we're finally coming up on, was it January release date? I'm pretty sure.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, and I can't wait to see it. I just think that he has a great eye, and I think he's good with actors. And from what I understand, it's pretty difficult to direct yourself. So he seems to be really good at it because he put in a great performance with Argo. So I'm excited to see where he goes with it.
I, in fact, have seen Gone Baby Gone. I think it is a very cleverly made film. I have also seen Argo. I have not seen The Town. Now, I've only seen Argo once. I was 10 years old when I saw it, and I had no idea what was happening. I'll definitely have to rewatch it before Live by Night comes out, and because it won the best picture,
Yes, and he didn't even get nominated for Best Director, which was strange.
and it also won best adapted screenplay, was it?
Yeah, pretty sure it was adapted. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a great movie, and The Town is good too. I think we talked about that on our past episode. How at first I wasn't a fan and kind of had to watch it again to really appreciate it. But The Town certainly has its own level of genius. But I think he found his voice with Argo. I think he kind of perfected his directorial style with that one. So I would highly
Yeah.
recommend it to anyone that's listening.
Who's listening? I think that brings us on to our second piece of movie news. During the week, we were able to see some new pictures of the Shocker, the villain in, well, one of the many villains in the new Spider Man Homecoming movie. What were your overall thoughts on these images, and how do you think the Shocker will play in the new Spider Man movie?
Sure. So the Shocker's always looked kind of weird in the comic books. He has a really weird, I don't know, toilet paper looking suit with some orange and some yellow on.
And some fishnets.
Yeah, exactly. So I was really nervous about how they were going to approach Shocker, and I think he looks really cool. It's what I would expect from a Marvel film is to kind of take the super suit or whatever and make it into something that makes sense in the real world. And this suit makes sense. Do I think it's necessarily the coolest looking one that I've ever seen? No, I don't think it's the coolest looking supervillain suit that I've seen, but it makes sense. And the gauntlets that he has, the Shocker gauntlets, look cool. And I don't think he's going to play a very large part in Spider-Man Homecoming, but I will certainly be interested to see how they utilize this character because he was interesting in the comics. He really he didn't feature much, but whenever he popped up, it was cool to see him, and he popped up in a lot of the video games too. That for whatever reason they loved putting the Shocker in video games. So I'll be excited to see what they do with him in a live action context.
He is a very secondary Spider-Man villain, so
Absolutely.
I also don't think that they're probably going to use him that much in the new Spider-Man Homecoming movie. With all these villains that we've heard of, are they going to make the exact same mistake as Spider-Man 3 did and Amazing Spider-Man 2 did?
No, I don't think so. I think that now that Spider-Man is under Marvel Studios creative control, it should be fine. I think it's going to be fine. They know what they're doing. They've had movies where they've handled multiple villains. Civil War had just so many characters overall, and they juggled them perfectly. It felt like every character got their due. They received the amount of screen time that they needed for their individual and collective story arcs. So, based off of what I've seen from Marvel Studios, I think that it'll be fine. And I can't wait to see how they handle all of these characters, some of which we haven't even seen before, like the Vulture and the Tinkerer. So yeah, I just can't wait to see it. Plus, we have Spider-Man where he belongs in high school as a kid that has to learn how to juggle daily life and superhero life, which is one of my favorite parts of Spider-Man growing up was I felt like I could almost relate because we were so similar besides the fact that I wasn't bit by a radioactive spider and I didn't have superpowers. But beyond that, I just loved it love reading those comics so much because I was like, wow, I could be Spider-Man. Possibly, it's anything's possible now. So that's what I want to see captured in the movie.
I reiterate your statements completely. I think that brings us to an end of our movie news segment of the week, and that brings us on to our film reviews. This week, I saw Hell or High Water and Cafe Society. You haven't seen Cafe Society, have you?
No, it's actually not playing anywhere near me, which is unfortunate. I really wanted to see it.
I think you probably wait for it on DVD. The weird thing is,
Okay.
though, I haven't seen any of the Schmoes reviews or the Stuckman reviews or the Johns reviews for it.
Yeah, me neither. That almost makes me wonder. There's did it release more widely in the UK before it did in the US? Because I haven't seen it anywhere around in the US.
I know it's very strange unless
Yeah.
they've had a review embargo on it until maybe next week or so. It's very rare that you see a film come out in the UK and there's still no reviews in America yet.
Or
So
any buzz whatsoever.
I know, which is actually a bit of a refreshing feeling for me because I usually watch Schmoes, watch Jeremy Jahns, watch Chris Stuckman, sometimes watch the flick pick, and then go and see the film.
Right.
And I try very hard to block out all of the reviews, but sometimes some ideas creep in. So it was very nice to see a completely fresh perspective on Cafe Society. I'm not going to talk about Cafe Society yet. I'm going to talk about Hell or High Water, which is one of my favourite films of the summer, probably one of my favourite films of the year. This movie
Absolutely.
is fantastic.
Oh, it is so great.
You were raving about it on last week's episode, and now I understand why. The performances were brilliant. Chris Pine, I love that he's taken away from the Star Trek, and it's nice to see him in a different, almost indie film.
Yeah.
I think there was a point where during the film, I think midway through the second act, I was thinking, this isn't the greatest. I didn't think it was dealing with the themes that well. And you get to the third act, and it blew my mind away, especially the very end scene. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the very end scene, my god, my heart was pumping out of my chest. And there were some other scenes where my heart was pumping out of my chest as well. Some of the intensity of some of the scenes in the movie was directed perfectly. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, reiterating from last week, it's so great to hear you raving about it as well because that's basically everything you have said is also exactly how I feel. The performances, the tension that just builds and builds. It's a slow burn film, but by the time it ends, it feels like you've been dragged through the mud for miles because you just come out so worn and but just your adrenaline is pumping. You're just so excited, and I had mentioned to the episode last how that Chris Stapleton song at the end just really made the ending for me because it perfectly encapsulated the tone of the entire movie. And that is another thing that I didn't bring up last time, but I'll bring up this time and kind of ask you to comment on is the tone of this film is so consistent and just so well executed. This director, I cannot wait to see what he does next because he knows what he's doing tonally and aesthetically. And if you can bring those two together along with good performances, I think you have the absolute potential for a great film. Would you agree that this director had a good eye for the tone?
Definitely. I think that nailed the tone completely. I did have a slight issue with the film, and that was some exposition. There was some exposition in the film that did kind of bug me in the beginning, and you'll see why if you see the movie. Did you feel like the exposition bugged you?
Honestly, no. That's kind of funny that you bring that up because I thought in Hell or High Water the exposition was done incredibly well. They kind of give it to you bit by bit. They don't just have one explaino scene where they just run through it all. They have a couple of conversations here and there where inevitably, yeah, you know, it has to be said. Not there's a lot that's happened in the past that can't just be shown to you. I was happy we didn't get any stupid flashbacks or anything like that. It was just slowly, bit by bit, we kind of found out what these brothers are doing, or rather, why they're doing it. And it allowed me to get invested in the story and the characters that much better because it wasn't just thrown at me in the beginning. It was kind of built up to, some things were hinted at, and then eventually you understand what's the root behind all of this. And I felt like the exposition was actually really well done. But that's actually an interesting difference of opinion.
You mentioned the music, and I actually thought the music was used very well in this movie. There's a nice breather from Suicide Squad where the music was not
Oh
used
my
very
gosh.
well at all. Right, I think I will give it a rating before we move on, and I have
Okay.
three ratings. I have three ratings. It's either cinema, DVD, or cable, and this is a cinema movie. You definitely have to go see this in the cinema
Absolutely. Absolutely.
mul- multiple times as well. I think this film definitely deserves a second viewing.
I agree 100%. It's so good.
I think that brings us on to my next review. I was a very busy boy this week, and I saw two movies. The second film I saw was Cafe Society. We were talking about it a few minutes earlier. Woody Allen, he so far I've seen about four of his movies, and he has impressed me so far. I think that he just can't stop making a good movie from what I've seen. Yes, this movie draws on Manhattan, but it does put its own spin, and the themes in this movie and the character development are very well utilized. The characters develop brilliantly throughout the film, and they're very cleverly done. It's a very cleverly made film. Corey Stoll's character, you might not even know that he's in the movie, but he steals the show when he is in a scene. He is brilliant, and he's only got about 5 lines of dialogue. His character was very well used, and it fitted the movie perfectly. Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Um, their chemistry was very good in American Ultra. I really didn't like them. They just didn't work for me. Have you seen American Ultra?
No, I was about to say I didn't even bother going to see that one because based just not even no reviews. I didn't even read any reviews just based off the trailer. I was like, well, unless someone else is watching it, you know, has it on in the background, I'm probably never going to see that movie because it just did not get my interest at all.
Yeah, I don't even know what that movie is. Like, that's another conversation. We're talking about Cafe Society. The lighting in this movie was used very well, and some people may think this movie ends abruptly, but I think the ending to this movie fits the movie and all the themes in the movie very well. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. I can actually understand that because I've seen movies once or twice where like, wow, that kind of ended not where I expected, but you still walk away satisfied because like, yes, that's how that story should have ended. So I can absolutely understand that. Real quick, I'm so happy to hear you say that Corey Stoll was good in this because he was incredible, I thought, in House of Cards, as long as his character was on. And I've been waiting for him to do something else that kind of really tested his acting skills. Ant-Man was not that movie, and I have yet to see one that really made me go, wow, this guy could be great someday based off of a film performance. So I'm very excited now to see this movie because I want to know, you know, you said not many lines, but still, you don't need many lines to be great. So I can't wait to see it now.
People may have a problem with the narration during this film, and I did. It is narration. I don't like people talking to me about certain characters. But do you want to know who narrates this movie?
I actually do.
And I was very happy to hear his voice because I haven't heard his voice in a very long time in a movie, and that's Woody Allen.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, he hasn't put himself in one of his movies in a very long time, it feels like.
I know it's it was nice to hear his voice and comment, and it in my eyes, if it wasn't Woody Allen, it wouldn't have worked. But because it was Woody Allen, I actually think it kind of worked, which is kind of strange and kind of hypocritical. But I don't care.
It makes sense. I mean, he's the one telling the story visually, so he might as well give you some of the story over audio as well. That I can understand that working as opposed to other movies that might not.
There are a few jarring scenes where it does completely turn away from the main story. It is a little jarring, but you get over it because they are little fun scenes. And this movie is fun and entertaining. And the first 20 minutes, some scenes are hysterical, especially Jesse Eisenberg. And he's not that schizophrenic kind of, well, yeah, that kind of character that he plays like in BVS, in American Ultra, in Social Network. He's not that kind of weird, creepy kind of guy. He's
Yeah,
actually
jumpy weirdo that nobody really understands perfectly type of
mm,
thing that he's fallen into.
sometimes you do get that small vibe of that, but he is mainly just playing Woody Allen, and he actually plays Woody Allen very well because you've seen Annie Hall, haven't you?
Yes.
And he likes to, and he also uses that same kind of character in Manhattan as well. And he what he does is he tries to get other people to play him basically in his early days.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse Eisenberg and Owen Wilson in Midnight in Paris, they are playing Woody Allen and they play him very well. There is a problem in this movie, and there was about 20 minutes, I'd probably say 15 minutes during this movie, where it completely deviates from the first 40 minutes of the movie. It just completely goes away. I was feeling, oh no, is this going to be a Batman killing joke kind of thing? But it doesn't, thankfully, and it introduces the first half of the movie into the second half of the movie, and it links them very well, very cleverly. I think this is a very clever movie. It's not his greatest movie of all time,
Mm-hmm.
but it is definitely worth seeing in the cinema. If you're looking for a clever movie that is also fun, this is the movie that you're going to see.
Cool. Those are some of my favorite types of movies. Quick question. You had said that you were out of it for those 20 minutes where he was connecting perhaps one half of the movie to the other. Do you think that on a repeat viewing that it would still keep you better engaged because you know now what the end game is, so those 20 minutes kind of make more sense to you? Or is it something where no matter how many times you watch it, it's still going to bother you a little?
I think on repeat viewings, I will definitely get used to the fact that it deviates completely from the first half. I will say that during the last 15, 20 minutes of this film, some themes were brought up and some ideas were brought up that I don't think were necessary to the overall film.
There's always some nitpicks here and there.
Yes. So, yeah, overall, I think people should go see this in the cinema.
Awesome. I'm excited.
This brings us on to a segment for this week we'll be calling Director of the Week, and because of Cafe Society, we'll be talking about the works of Woody Allen. What do you think of Woody Allen as a director, as an actor, as a writer?
Director, writer, great. Actor, not so much. I've only seen, to be fair, four, I'm pretty sure, of his movies. So I'm not exactly a Woody Allen expert. However, from the ones that I have seen, which are Annie Hall, Scoop, Midnight in Paris, and Magic in the Moonlight, he only acts of those four in Annie Hall and Scoop. And I feel like he's the weakest part of Annie Hall and Scoop each time, just because I think that his visual style as a director is great. He's great with actors, from what I can tell. His scripts are so engaging and fun to read as well as to watch. But for whatever reason, I don't appreciate his comedic style when he's acting. It I appreciate offbeat humor, but for whatever reason, I just cannot connect with his characters in Annie Hall and Scoop. So Annie Hall wasn't a huge fan of. I understood, or at least I can understand, why people like it as much as they do. It made me laugh here and there, but I guess it just wasn't what I was expecting. And perhaps just because everybody always goes on about how incredible they think it is. So I think my expectations were raised far too high. Um, and I just did not really care for him in that movie. Same with Scoop, but I did enjoy the rest of Scoop that didn't include him. I thought it was fun and had a quirky little story. And Midnight in Paris is one of my favorite movies of all time. The music is great, the visuals are great, the story is incredible, the performances are also incredible. So that's probably my favorite movie of his that I've seen. And then Magic in the Moonlight was good as well. It didn't necessarily blow me away, but I enjoyed the movie and I've seen it a couple times since and still liked it each time. But that's my view. Writer and director, love the guy. Actor, not so much. But what's your take on that, Harvey?
I think he's a fine actor. I actually do prefer it when he has gotten actors in to play the main character, which you can definitely see that in his earlier years he would definitely have played. I think as a writer director, he can get a little repetitive because films that he writes and directs, their conflicts come from love, and it does get a little tiring, which is why I probably won't see too many more Woody Allen movies, even though I think he is a very talented writer and director. I have seen Annie Hall, Manhattan, Midnight in Paris, Irrational Man, and now Cafe Society. All good movies. I think Annie Hall wasn't his greatest. I still very much enjoyed it. Manhattan, you have to see Manhattan. It is very cleverly done. And
Awesome.
it the characters are just they're perfectly written. The themes are very well dealt with, and he has pulled on a lot of Manhattan. Some of those ideas, some of the things that actually do happen in Manhattan, he's pulled on those and put them into his other films, such as Cafe Society. There was a lot. Well, I wouldn't say there's a lot. There is some parts of Manhattan that I definitely saw in Cafe Society. They even took a shot from Manhattan and put it in Cafe Society. It literally is a completely the same shot
That's
just from
interesting.
Midnight in Paris blew me away. It really
Absolutely.
did. I think it is one of the greatest movies of all time. I think it was there's nothing else to say really. Marianne Cotillard was very well. It was very good in this. Corey Stoll was very good. Fitzgerald was Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy. Tom Hiddleston. There we go. Tom
Yeah,
Hiddleston
Tom.
was good. I also I love the Rachel McAdams' dad. That he was a very funny character, and especially when he gets the detective and the detective gets lost in 16th century Paris.
Yeah.
That was that was very funny. I do like that his films deal with a quite a dark theme that quite a gritty theme of love, but he manages to make them upbeat and fun and entertaining and light. You have to be a very talented filmmaker to do that, and I think he's a very talented filmmaker. He said that he never wants to stop making films. I actually think that he should take a break. I really do.
I agree. I was actually, it's so funny you bring it up. I was about to ask you about that because this guy has been making a movie a year for I don't even know how long, but for very long time. And I almost wonder if that's maybe the source of his repetitiveness is you can only come up with so many script ideas before you just end up at the beginning where you started and kind of repeating yourself.
I know. It's still a little of a shame, but he's a very talented filmmaker. A lot of his films get glossed over, and I think one reason why some of his films get glossed over is because he makes one every single year, so people
Mm-hmm.
may get tired. And there may be a specific gem, maybe in, I don't know, 2003, 2004, in which he's made a movie. He probably has. Um, and people have glossed over because they've seen a Woody Allen movie for 5 consecutive years for the 5 years beforehand. So they've
Right.
decided to skip this one. And I do think that he is a very talented filmmaker. I actually don't think he is appreciated as much as I think he should be in the world of cinema.
Yeah, that's an interesting opinion.
He's made some brilliant work. I don't think he gets mentioned enough. Although I do think he should take a definite break. And he's 83 years old.
Holy
He's been
cow, I did
making
not know that.
he's been making movies for 40 some odd years. If he takes a break for 2 or 3 years and makes a very good movie every 2 or 3 years, I think people will definitely come back and hold him in regard to one of the greatest directors of all time, because I don't think he is being held at that status at the moment, which he should be, because I
Right.
have not seen a bad movie. I have not.
Yeah, people just end up taking him for granted because they see so much from him that, and it's all good to an extent. So it's like, oh, there's another Woody Allen movie, knocked it out of the park again. Oh well.
I know. It's it's a bit of a shame, to be honest. I mean, Quentin Tarantino has made a bad movie in my opinion. I don't think Death Proof is that good of a movie.
That's the only one I haven't seen. But I would say for me, Jackie Brown was just okay, and I was slightly let down by Kill Bill. So different conversation for another time, but I understand. I think where you're coming from because maybe he spreads them out a little further. They get a little more notoriety when they are released. Hateful Eight, especially because of all the background behind that, but the time in between really helps people to get excited for the next one. Whereas if it's like, oh, it's Oscar season again, where's that new Woody Allen movie that we get every single year? It's going to be another story about love, and it's going to be great. So I can probably just wait on that and go see something that I haven't seen yet. So I would love to see him take a break and kind of gather some ideas, make some really great scripts, and then come back and give us some more. But I think some time off he could possibly benefit from.
Definitely. He is going to do an Amazon series. Do you know about that?
I read a short little article back when it was announced, but I don't know anything of what it's about, like the premise or anything.
Me either. I think it comes out the end of September. I'm kind of excited for this.
Right. Yeah. I I wonder where he can take this Amazon series. I'm excited for it. I remember when it was first announced. I remember I was intrigued, but I don't have Amazon Prime as it is, and I don't know if this will be the thing that makes me say, "Oh yeah, I've got to go out and get Amazon Prime." So I'll wait on until the reviews come out and make my decision then. But yeah, I don't know if my excitement is all that. I think I would rather see him stick to movies overall. But I mean, he's Woody Allen. You don't really argue with someone like that. So kind of let him do wherever his artistic wishes take him, I guess.
I do think Amazon Prime will probably be a good platform for Woody Allen. It'd be very interesting to see him take a story and really develop it, because most of his movies are 90 minutes long. And if we saw a 6 hour long movie of Woody Allen's, which is what it will hopefully be, I think this could be very, very good, and it could be one of Woody Allen's greatest works. I'm hoping. I really am hoping.
Me too. Me too.
You don't have Amazon Prime. How
I
do you
don't.
not?
I don't. I have Netflix. I borrow my buddy's Hulu because I'm cheap, and I keep wanting to get Amazon Prime for Man in the High Castle and all that, but I just haven't been able to bite the bullet yet.
I think what Amazon does very cleverly is that it provides a platform for pilots, and they have those pilot seasons. And I think next week I will probably be doing a Amazon pilot review for The Last Tycoon starring Kelsey Grammer, the Tick written and created by Ben Edlund, if I'm not correct, and Jean-Claude Van Johnson.
I've heard that's actually really good.
Really good is a way of putting it. It is what I wanted it to be, which is cheesy, action, fun with a guy who can do the splits.
Well, yeah, I guess like you said, what more would you expect?
And that's what I got, and I hope it gets picked up. The thing is, though, with some of those Amazon shows, is you see a good show and it doesn't get picked up, which is a little bit of a shame. But I'm glad that we actually saw a snippet of what we could have seen rather than seeing absolutely nothing, because some people may have gone to the studio and said, we want this, and they said no, and they get turned away. But now they can go to Amazon Prime, get at least one episode out, and possibly it could get turned into a show. And it's a good way to get their people's names out and people's material out.
I agree. Yeah, it's a good way to present it. They have the platform, might as well put it to good use. And I think you have a point where you say at least it gives these shows a chance to have a life. Otherwise, like you said, they could have just sat on a shelf forever and never go anywhere. And then, you miss out on potentially great television that way.
Mm. We've been trying to cut down, and I think that brings us to the end of our show.
Absolutely, I think it was a good one. I like where we went with this one.
I did too. We got a bit of a good lengthy discussion rather than having a lot of topics fill up our show. It's been a pleasure talking movies with you.
Always, I love it. This is something I look forward to every time.
Me too. And I think it's goodbye from Ryan, and it's goodbye from me. Tune in next time.